I'm really happy to be here and share movement with you and to share yoga with you. I kind of distinguish between movement and yoga. It's funny, over the years, I began as a yoga teacher, but then I kind of learned about movement. I tend to think yoga is movement, but what I learned along the way was knowing how your body is constructed, where things are, kind of conflicted with a lot of the yoga that I learned. And one of those areas in particular is the hip joint. We'd say, oh, we can do all of these yummy hip openers in yoga and stretches for the hips, and that'll make us feel better and more relaxed. And that's really true and great. However, I've also seen people do a lot of those yoga poses without understanding where their hip joint is, and they're compensating the movement in their back and in their knees. And yoga is really compassion. Yoga is about tending to yourself lovingly, doing the right thing for your body. That is yoga too. That's an essence of yoga. So I just want to share a little bit about where your hip joint is, so that when we do these yummy stretches and movements, you'll have a clue of where you're moving from. I hope you can think that's a really good idea and useful to you. So I'm just going to show you this longest bone in your body, and it is called a femur bone. It's a left femur bone. And at the top of this ball, this is your hip joint. This is where your leg moves, if you like, in the socket of your pelvis. And that would be the actual hip joint. Now, all around that are all of the muscles at the front and at the back that move that joint. But I'm going to say, if I asked you, where is your hip joint? And I can't really see all of you, but I'm going to say most people, if they say, where's your hips? And they go, they're here, aren't they? This is my hips. So imagine I was a yoga teacher for maybe 3-4 years before I found out where my hip joint was. Hell's bells. There's a lot of yoga teachers out there who also don't know where their hip joint is. It is not here. That's not your hip joint. It's part of your hip muscles. But I'm going to put this bone where my hip joint actually is. And you can see, well, here's my knee. Here's my knee. And the ball would go pretty much in here, right? So isn't that very central to your body? So look, if I lift my leg, the ball would be rolling in the socket right here. So if I turn my leg out and in, I hope you can see, it would be this ball rolling here. And you can find that on yourself. I can do this with you and show. If you're standing, you probably need to stand to do this. And if you just start to move, bend a little into your knees, and this line here, I think of it as the panty kind of line here, depending on what panties you wear, but the sort of panty line here into the groin, the creases, and right in the center of there is where you'll find that joint, pretty much in there. So if you, for example, lift a leg, and you say, I'm lifting my leg from my hip joint right here, do you usually think that's where you're moving the joint? Because if I said, now lift your leg from here, I feel very clunky all of a sudden, right? It's very central in the body. So we'll be sort of focusing on, this is my hip joint, I need to do the movement in here. Now, if I don't, what happens is I can confuse lifting a leg here with my back. I can hike it up here and move from here, or do something a little funky with my knees if I'm not aware of this joint. We want to protect the back, protect the knees, and move healthily in the hips. So we can start seated and let's just get a little bit of lubrication into that joint. So it's a ball and socket joint. The ball will roll in the socket. We'll take up the right leg, and we're going to just lift and lower that leg. You're welcome to breathe deeply. It's free, it's delicious, and we need that oxygen in and the waist out. Lovely. So can you kind of picture that the ball is rolling back in the socket as you lift your leg up, and then rolling back to neutral as you come down? Then to really get the joint juicy, we're going to make a big scoopy circle. And your joint here is in a capsule. And the way it has more range of motion is if it's coated in synovial fluid. To make synovial fluid, we move. Movement creates that fluid. You can change the direction. Lovely. And then we can, like a gate, kind of open and close. Very nice. Place that leg down. And then we're going to do hip motion the other direction. So we can lift a leg and flex the hip, but we can also flex the hip by folding and rolling down as if you want to come down and tie your shoelace, but try not to round your back as you do that. If you start rounding your back, now that's not your hip joint, that's your back. And this is where we want to distinguish healthy hip joint from hurting our back. Okay, take a nice deep breath, however far down you've got. If you can reach your toes, super duper, or down to your knee is fine. Take a nice deep breath in. And a sigh out. So I got this. You don't need to think about it too much. Just feel it. I've got this. Super. And then we'll wind our way up. And we're going to explore the hip joint on the other side. Each hip joint has its own story. Some may be tighter on one side than another, you know, more flexible, stronger. But first of all, let's say hello, hip joint. So as I lift my leg, you can almost picture there's like a bone rolling back. It's a different leg, but the idea, right? That bone is rolling back in the socket. You can lift and lower. And that's working. Some of the muscles, of course, that do move the hip joint. Then we'll think of lubricating as we roll the ball. Rolling the ball. Roll and scoop far and wide in the socket. And of course, I'm using upper body strength to do this. I'm not really using I can feel the weight of the leg. Stir the other direction. This is really just a very passive action to warm up. And you know, do this first thing in the morning in bed. Oh, how easy, before you even have to use those hips to walk around. And we can open and close a little. Very good. And then we're folding the hip joint. This time now, we're folding over the leg. So this is still the hip joint as you come forwards. And then maybe start to roll down a little bit, wherever you can go. You don't have to go all the way down, but don't compromise your low back. So you should still feel a curve in your low back if you were going to put your socks or shoes on. Can you feel that? Go to where you can go and give yourself 2 or 3 really deep breaths. And you can even reassure yourself, hey, I've got this. I'm very foldable in my hip joint. I can feel some width in the base of my pelvis, a little bit of curve in my back. Breath flowing. Nice, and then we'll come back up. Into center. And let's just get into breathing with the shoulders and rolling the shoulders a little bit, because interestingly, if we have tension in the shoulders and the neck, and a lot of that forward head that we have, you know, from the computer, digital technology, then that will also increase tightness in your hips. So we want free shoulders, and we'll do this then with breath. Breathing in, up they go. Breathing out, release them down. Breathing in, up they go. Breathing out, release. And again, breathing in. And breathing out. Super. Now we'll take the right arm and just start to reach the right arm up in a little stretch. And back down. And then the other arm, a little reach and a stretch. Can you feel that the stretch as you reach your arm? We'll do a little each side. Is pulling all the way through the side of the body down in toward the hip joint. We're going to be adding the hips to this in a moment. But feel the stretch down your ribs, down right the way down, down, down your body. It's not just your arm, right? Down into the torso. And I'm going to say, enjoy this stretch. Let it feel good. Oh. Wonderful. Now we'll begin a little rotation. Reach out your arms and rotate. And allowing the breath to flow. If we have tightness in the ribs, this is also going to impair our ability to open the hips, and I'll show you that in a couple of poses I've got lined up. We need to get the ribs flexible. Of course, breathing does that, but feel this rotation. You're moving the ribs. Super. Come back into center. We're going to move into a little bit of cat and cow in the chair. The hands onto the lap and come a little forward in the chair. And actually, before we do cat and cow, you're going to shift your weight from sit bone to sit bone. And this is really a great way to tell what's happening in the hips, if we're moving from the hips or moving in the back. So we come into cat and cow, and you arch your back, but feel your pelvis widen as you do that. Feel your sit bones spread as you arch your back. And then exhale, feel your pelvic bones come together as you round your back. Breathe in. Cow pose, but feel your pelvis widen. Exhale, tuck your tailbone and feel your pelvis narrow. Breathing in, sit bones widen as you come forward. Breathing out, sit bones come together as you round. Take 2 or 3 more of that and enjoy this lovely flexibility of your spine. Shape changing, breathing. Excellent. Oh my goodness. So we're going to get moving with some standing poses. And you know, actually, you know what, we'll do a little bit to open in the chair, and then if standing isn't for you, you can come back and do some of these in the chair. So, excuse me for backtracking there, just makes it a little easier. Take your feet a little wider in the chair, and you're in a kind of a goddess sort of pose. Give a little stroke out to the inner thighs, and say good afternoon to your knees. I think we're now in afternoon, you can say that. Lovely. And then we'll turn out, so you need to be very much on the edge of the chair here. Turn out your right foot to the side, and then your left knee can come down. You can hold on to the back of the chair. So now you've got some length into what's called the hip flexor. Right, and now kind of stroking down, it comes from the side of your spine and attaches to slightly the back of your leg. It's very short and tight from a lot of sitting. So we can stretch this a little bit more now. If we do that arm raise like we just did, reach the knee down, the arm across a little bit, lean a little bit into there. Now take a breath or two. And you feel it's kind of opening over the crease of the hip. This is our lunge position. Right, release that down. Very swift and simple. Do the same thing to the other side. So I've only really got one butt cheek on the chair, but I'm holding the chair. And then I want the knee to be like a straight line down if I can. And I'm just going to stroke. This is my hip flexor, attaches to the side of the spine and to the leg, just underneath the leg. So if that knee goes down, it's going to stretch the hip flexor. Now we reach it up with the arm, and you're in this lunge position. I love this. You can reach out with the fingers, but reach down with the knee. So it's a really lovely big stretch down the side of the body, opening the front of the hip. That feels good. Excellent. Bring that all the way back and down. We'll take one little journey before we do our getting up of legs wide, and then stirring the pot and shifting the weight from sit bone to sit bone. And every time your kind of belly's closer to your knee, you're more flexed in the hip, but try not to round your back because this is a coupled action. As soon as we fold, we don't want to round the lower back. Change direction. I have to excuse my creepy chair. I feel like I'm on a ship. Okay, now are we ready? Maybe just shake out the legs a little bit and paddle the feet a little, twirl the feet. We're ready to get up and down out of the chair. I'm going to say we're going to do this 5 times. Do what you can, but as effortless as you can. So if you come a little forward, feel the pelvis is going to widen a little bit, and then we're going to get ourselves up and feel the pelvis narrow a little bit. And did you do that? Lovely hip joints. Say hi, hip joints. Then we'll fold the hip creases, fold the hip creases. Can you see that ball in the socket a little bit better where this is happening? So we've got to get our body weight next time onto those balls of the legs, the tops of the legs, right? Can we do it? Let's get up. Boop, you're on your legs. That's your hip joint. Nice flat here. We're going to do it again. I think that was 2. So folding at the hip joint. Lovely. Let's bring ourselves back onto the legs. 3. We've got 2 more. Folding. Feel, let's see where those hip joints are. Beautiful. Then again, we're going to get up. Number 4. And maybe you sense a little bit better where that crease is. Up we go. So now your whole upper body is now on those 2 femurs, right? But do we lean to one side or lean to another? So you can try that. Do you tend to stand like that or stand like that? And can you see those that would happen with your, like if I'm standing like that, I've got a lot of weight on there, right? So just shifting it about so we find our true mountain pose wouldn't be with the weight shifted to one side, but we don't know we're doing it. That's the problem. So feel your weight is nice and tall and lifted on those bones. You're balancing on 2 little balls there. Isn't that funny? Super. We need the help of a chair here. So you can do some of this sitting, but I think it's good to get out of the chair and really get moving with our hip joint. So I'm going to hold on to the chair and move my leg from this hip joint in the ways that it likes to move. And one is, can I swing my leg a little back and forth? And can you feel where this is happening from? Now you know, you've seen the picture. So I can move my hip joint in this direction. I can move my hip joint in this direction. So it swings out and in. And then I can also rotate it out and in. Can you see that? Like rotating out and in, which is perfect for tree pose, right? So in tree pose, can you imagine that ball and the knee in that direction? Place your foot wherever it feels good to support you. And now all of your weight is on this leg. Can you feel the muscles strong and supporting you? Feel energy lift you up. If you want to balance without holding the chair, you're welcome to do that. You're welcome to breathe. And finding the essence of tree pose, sensing your body, where your weight is in space. You're balanced on a ball. Let your breath flow. And then don't think about it, just be it. Beautiful trees, maybe the branches are reaching for a little snow to tickle them. Or not today, I don't know. Okay, we're going to shake it out a little bit and do the same little exploration on the other side. And it's good to recap it, isn't it? See if you get that clarity. So what is the clarity? Let's move this out of the way. It is, there's a ball and socket right in here, and we want to see if we can swing the leg forward and back from that ball. It actually feels like really easy, like a pendulum kind of swinging. Let your breath flow, stay tall. And then we can also swing our leg from out to in. And all of these things have, you know, technical names and all of that. We just like swinging our leg. But then we could also rotate the leg in and out. So the ball rotates that way and that way. If you imagine that there's an eye on the ball of the socket, it would be like a curious eye looking at the world, and then a shy eye. I'm not looking. Curious eye, shy eye. And then that curious eye allows the knee to open, the hip to open, so you can place your foot wherever is good, and you're into tree pose. Wow. Now, if you're going to not hold on so much, all of the weight is on this leg. Can you feel you'll build the bone, the muscles? Supported, strong on this leg, while this hip is opening. Maybe you have branches, you decide, it could be one branch. But do you have breath filling, opening you in the pose? Tree pose, Vrikshasana. Okay, shake it out, let it go. I better move my bone a little bit out of the way as we use the chair for some of these more kind of deep, stretchier poses. Now, I hope that if this chair is too high for you, that you might have a stool or something a little lower if this is too much. So do what you can. So I'm going to put a leg on the chair and just move a little back and forth. So I'm bending in the limb of my knee, my ankle, and guess what? My hip joints. So we're putting ourselves a little bit into that lunge pose that we were doing before. So I could then hold on. Actually, I need to take a little bit tricky. I need to hold the back of the chair and take the back leg arm up. So I should really be the other way around. Perhaps I should do that. Make it a little easier for you. That would be better, wouldn't it? You can shift that around if you need to. So we were doing that lunge before. Now, a little bit deeper if you've got your foot on the chair. You can always come back to the chair to do this in the seat if it's easier for you. And reaching over, stretching into your hip flexor. Nice deep breath in. And then release that down. So we're going to bend into the standing leg, bend into the limbs, push away from the ground, take a breath in and come back up and over a little more. Exhale and bring it down. Inhale, reach to the lunge. Exhale, bring it down. Super. All right, now if you can, start to straighten out the leg on the chair a little bit. And we get this nice stretch to the hamstrings at the back. Oh, that's a nice, beautiful deep stretch into the back of the leg. But if you want to, fold at the hip crease, you know where your hip crease is now, your bottom will widen, you keep your low back curve, and you'll really deepen the stretch. So just go where you need to. Find the deep breaths and take the breath right to where you feel the stretch. Let's try, 3 good cleansing breaths here. Wow, I can really feel that one. So let's bring the leg back down, give it a little shake out. And we'll switch to do the other side. So sorry, I didn't guide you in the best visible way there. So I guess it's the leg nearest the chair that has to be nearest the back of the seat that has to come on the chair. And the other leg, you can kind of walk back a little bit. And then just move back and forth. And you're folding and unfolding. One side starts to fold, the other unfolds. And then we'll settle into the lunge. So now this is getting the lovely stretch as we reach up and over, opening out the very front and side of the hips. Nice deep breath. And then we'll move with the flow a little bit as you bring your arm down, bend into the standing limb, the limb that's on the ground, and then push away from the ground, breathe in and reach back into the lunge. Breathe out, bend and come back down. Breathe in and reach, push the ground away with your foot. Breathe out, come back down. And then one more, reach it up, stretching, opening. Super. Release the arm down. And we can start to straighten out a little bit into the leg that's on the chair. And I'm going to cock the toes upwards a bit here. You can always keep a micro bend. You can also rub if you feel where's that sensation, maybe up here or the back of the knee or the calf. And then be here for a few breaths. A little more is to fold at the hip joint. Bottom is wider, low back curve is there. Not that people get embarrassed by that, like sticking your butt out, but save your back with your butt. And then find where the stretch is just right for you. Breathe. melting the muscles at the back of your thigh, knee, perhaps calf. Again, lovely deep breath. Great. Let's bring that leg back down to the floor. Give it a shake out. And we're going to do a yoga pose that is really nice for hip opening. It's called triangle pose, Trikonasana. So I'm going to come to the side of the chair with feet moderate stance apart, not super wide. That would be a very wide, it would be a wider triangle pose. We don't want it too wide. And we'll turn the toes to face the chair. So your back foot will be about 45 degrees and the front foot facing the chair. And from here, just shift the weight back and forth a little bit. Hopefully you don't knock your knees into the chair too much. And can you picture these, like the weight shifting from the ball of this femur head to this femur head, and say, oh, interesting. Never done triangle pose this way. But we want to see the weight is nice and steady, distributed well. Now, have a teeny bend into the legs. In triangle pose, to really open the hips, we actually need to be open in the ribs. So what we'll do here, you can either hold here or hold the chair, but we're going to swivel into like a little twist this way, that way. Try not to twist your knees here. Knees hate twisting. Breathe well as you turn and open the ribs. Super. So I hope we've lubricated and opened the ribs here. And now you can either hold on to the chair here at the back or onto the seat of the chair, or even you can move down your leg in a moment. But then we're going to straighten out the legs, take the top arm up and open your ribs back a little bit. So that twisting is trying to open the ribs so we don't hurt the knees or the low back here. Triangle pose. Look up to the hand if you can. Reach the fingers long. And then find the breath. Deep breath in. Good long breath out. Deep breath in. Full breath out. Can you feel your ribs could turn just a little more to the ceiling? And that is, it's starting to open the hip joint a little more. Gorgeous. Let's bring the arm down. Super duper. Pivot back into neutral. A little shake out. And we can go to the other side. Trikonasana, triangle pose. So taking the feet in a slightly wider stance. Turning your foot that's closest to the chair toward the chair. The back foot is about 45 degrees going toward the chair or to the wall at the diagonal. And then let's play a little bit, just bending, shifting the weight. And this is rather than kind of cranking the hip joint open, we're teasing the hip joint open with a little movement and awareness. And then we can start to straighten the legs a little more as we reach on either the back of the chair or the seat of the chair and begin to straighten out just a little bit. Then we can come back, bend into it a little bit, come out and begin to turn. So we're just easing our way. You can always hold the chair. And you think, in triangle pose, I've got to open up my ribs in this kind of strange position. You're pivoting, turn. Now reach for the chair and open into triangle, straightening the legs, reaching up the arm. You can also hold your leg if you feel steady. Just do what's good for you. And then looking to the hand. Now you're a triangle. Do you see the 3 points of the triangle? Your 2 feet and the hand. And as you're breathing, perhaps you can see those points in space in your mind's eye. Another nice deep breath. Okay, let's bring that arm down. Press to the ground, come back up. Super. And then we'll just step it out in space. We're going to be doing another little stretch with the foot on the chair. So I do hope you've got just the right level height chair for you. And this is a muscle to stretch. Sorry, this is a pose to stretch across here, across your bottom. There's a muscle here called the piriformis, and the sciatic nerve goes through it, and it gets very short and tight if we sit a lot or put our hips forward like that. So this is a really great one to do. We're going to need to hold the back of the chair, and this time I'm going to say we take the leg that's furthest away from the back of the chair onto the chair. Make that a little easy. And first of all, just wag your knee in and out. And we will do a seated version of this pose too today. But this is nice, a good way to access it. So as you start to lean forward, fold at your hip joint, and notice this sit bone will kind of widen a little bit. Let it go out to the side and give you a low back curve. And I'm even going to say, rub into your the kidney on this side. Where's the kidney? So you're just rubbing into the low back on this side. Very much kidney energy is related to our legs and hips. Then we can fold in a little deeper, maybe even tap wherever you feel any tightness, sensation around the butt there. And if you feel a bone sticking out, that would be the top of the bone, of your hip bone, if you like, when you think about that. This is what you're thinking of as your hips. And it's part of that leg bone, but it's not the joint. But it's where a lot of those muscles attach. So they get very sore there. Then we'll fold, hold, breathe wherever you can. Stick that butt cheek out just that little bit. Let your head take a break, rest, breathe. Relax your jaw. Great. And welcome back. Up we come, up we come. And we're going to go on that journey to the other side. Well, that feels such a great stretch. I really feel kind of looser in my hip on that side. So what I'll show you, I was kind of pointing to, what you can feel when you feel the bumpy bone is this. It's called the greater trochanter, and there are a lot of muscles attached here on this sort of hooky bone here. There's the joint. That's the bone you're feeling. So we can feel that now on the other side as you put your leg on the chair. And maybe just wag the leg in and out. So you're, again, that eye of the ball is kind of opening and closing. And then we can lean in a bit, folding at the hip joint and rubbing to the kidney here. So this is your low back on this side. Getting your chi moving, your prana. And then go down a little bit, and any area that you feel tightness across the butt here, and you may run into that bone, that sticky out bone. If you wag your leg, you'll feel it move. So that's another thing you could do, is rub and wag. And that's kind of where your piriformis muscle attaches, is onto there. So we're stretching that. Hold the pose, stick your butt out a little on that side. Let the weight of your head hang for a moment, and take 2 or 3 nice deep breaths. Great. Let's bring the thumb back up. A little shake out dance. And then we're going to stretch into the inner thigh muscles. So to do that, and you could do this also in the chair, but I'm going to say we're going to do it standing behind the chair. Take the legs wide here, nice and wide. And you can feel that stretch coming into here. And then we'll begin to fold at the hip joint, folding. And as you fold, make sure your butt gets wider, 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 wider. If it doesn't, you'll be rounding in your back. So we don't want to do that. Stick your butt out as you fold, and then you can rest here with your arms either on the top of the chair or further down, lower on the chair. So this is our straddle position. It's a really good one for stretching the inner thighs, but also your pelvic floor too. Let's find 3 or 4 really good cleansing breaths and see if you can picture those where your hip joints are, where you're folding from. Good. Heel toe the feet back together. We can go. We can jump the feet together if you're feeling very crispy. And then we're going to do one last standing pose with the chair, and it's a nice twist pose. We need to go back to that kind of triangle position, and we'll turn the toes again towards the seat of the chair, and bring your hands down to the seat of the chair if you can. Now, if your left leg is forwards, your left arm is going to lift up and you'll turn toward the left, or if it's your right, twist toward the right. So we're in a kind of a twisty triangle now. Follow your breath, look up to your hand if you can. And maybe you feel those kind of calf muscles, back of the leg muscles. Where do you feel the stretch? Follow in and out with the breath. Good. Bring that arm back down. How did you do with that? I hope you did that well. Is that okay? We'll do the same on the other side. So in this kind of twisty triangle pose. So the leg comes forward. And we're looking if we can put more or less straight legs, but don't compromise your back to have straight legs. It's not so important. We can bring the hands to the chair, and then you're exploring, turning in the direction of the front leg. So if your right leg is forward, your right arm will come up and you're in a twist. Twisty triangle. If you can, look up to the hand. You can always be a little higher or a little lower. It depends where you want this twist to be. But listen to yourself, follow your own instinct. Super, bring that arm back down. And we've twisty triangled. It's time to come back into the seat. And we'll take pigeon pose stretch. So the seat we did with the leg on the chair for the piriformis. This is the same kind of pose. It's a nice relaxing pose to do, but if it hurts your knees, a strap can be useful. So if you have a strap, it's useful. So I can hook the strap around the ball of my right foot here, and I'm going to lift and lower the leg as I turn it out into the socket. So you can maybe see that ball is kind of rolling outwards that way. Now, if it's easy for you or possible for you to catch your foot over here, then you could do that. If not, then you can hold it here a little lower. We're all different on different sides. But for me, I'm okay with having my leg up here. Then I have to shift the weight a little bit onto my sitting bones. So you can feel your sitting bones, bony points that are not your tailbone. And we want to sit tall, the spine nice and lifted, you're sitting on your sit bones. This is coming now again into that stretch across the outside of the thigh, across the butt. And already sitting tall is a nice challenge. But if you want to, begin to hinge forwards a little more, folding in that hip crease. Whichever point you're at, give yourself a moment to process what you feel, to feel the breath move in and out, and to give yourself an affirmation here of surrender, letting go, surrender, letting go. Whatever you might be holding on to, can you just let it go? Easy breaths. Super. And then you can come back up. And if you have the strength, then you can reach out the leg, stretch out here a little bit, push the heel forward, the toes up. And just see again, can you lean a little forwards, widen a little in the base, really get that stretch into the back of the leg. So important to have healthy hips from releasing these muscles at the back of the leg. Yeah, that's super. It's good to stretch that because we're in this kind of 90-degree position with the legs and we sit a lot. So we'll do the same on the other side, put the strap around the foot, and we're kind of lifting and letting the knee come a little out to the side. So can you picture in here that the ball is kind of rolling a little out here? And then find where you can hold pigeon pose, or figure 4 pose, it's also called. Could be the leg is a little lower, or maybe you have the leg over the thigh. Try not to put any pressure on your knee though. And then fidget a little bit. So I'm shifting from sit bone to sit bone. So I know I'm not on my tail. If I'm on my tail, I'm rounding. I don't want to round. So stick your butt out and feel you'll arch your back a little bit and you'll roll onto the sit bones. Feel that stretch so much more here, across here. And again, if you want to feel or rub and say, oh, it's tender there. My right side is much, much more tender than my left. And that's a pattern in my hips, in my legs. And then you can explore, what if you lean a little more forward? And then see if you can soften through your body. Take a few deep breaths and find an affirmation for you. So for me, it is finding surrender, letting go, finding peace. Soften around your jaw also, like letting go of tension in your face, your eyes. The jaw very much correlates with the hips. So. Great, let's bring ourselves back up. And we can take the leg out in front and really stretch out. So the heel I'm pushing forward, the toes back. And to sit up tall, this is a massive stretch for most people. I'm lucky that I naturally am fairly flexible in the hips. For me to be able to lean a little forward is doable. For a lot of people, maybe not so. So be kind to you and do the noticing. As I come forward, I widen across the bottom and then I protect my back. Give it another breath or two. Ooh, feeling it, feeling it, feeling it. Great. Then we can bring that down. Put the strap down a little bit. Come into your seat. And then we'll just do just a couple of little moments of breathing and folding and unfolding. So breathing in, let your arms rise, unfold. Breathing out, we're going to fold, 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 and come down, 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 down. Ready to take a breath in and unfold at your leisure coming up, breathing in. Ah, isn't that good? Shall we roll down one more time? Rolling, rolling, rolling down. And then unfold, let your breath unfold you, breathing in. Breathing out. So you can take the legs a little wider and then stir the pot. Get a little slinky, let your shoulders swirl, your spine swirl. Wonderful. And then find that nice comfortable position in your seat. Sit up tall, but never be afraid to fidget. Never be afraid to fidget. We don't want to sit too still for too long. But we can be in seated mountain pose, feel our elegant, beautiful spine, our energy lifted. And then finding peace, comfort, ease throughout the body. Let's take 3 lovely deep breaths together to send us on the road. Find that full breath in. And you can sigh, let it out. And again, deep breath through the nose. Deep breath in. And let it out. We'll take the hands and then just going to rub around the low back, and that's our kidney zone. As we just move our legs a little, this is what's going to take our energy forward into the day, our chi, our kidney energy. Strong legs, so we can rub down the legs over the knees, give them a stamp, kick and shake. And I think and hope that you've got this lovely lower body that's flexible, strong, and ready to take your energy into the rest of your afternoon. And I'll say namaste. Thank you for joining me with movement and yoga, and I hope to see you in a couple of weeks.